I'll write this as a complete single-part story following your production template. The engine sat like a dying beast in the center of the factory floor, $3 million of German precision reduced to a silent, useless hunk of steel, and every engineer who had touched it in the last 6 weeks had walked away shaking their head in defeat. Marcus Webb wiped the sweat from his forehead with a grease-stained forearm and stared at the massive turbine engine that had brought down the reputation of an entire aerospace testing division. The morning sun poured through the high windows of Holbrook Dynamics, casting long golden bars of light across a floor littered with diagnostic equipment, torque wrenches, and the crumpled printouts of failed analysis reports. He was not supposed to be in this section of the building. He was a maintenance contractor, hired 3 months ago to fix leaking pipes and squeaky doors, not to stand within 10 feet of the company's most expensive prototype engine. But Marcus had been watching. For 6 weeks, he had watched 12 of the most credentialed engineers in the state come and go, each one more frustrated than the last, each one certain that the fault was something no human hand could fix. The engine had failed its final certification test, an unexplained catastrophic stall that the manufacturer's own specialists from Munich could not diagnose even after flying in twice. If Holbrook Dynamics could not get the engine certified within the month, the company would lose its government contract, and 300 people, including Marcus, would lose their jobs. If you believe that ordinary people deserve a second chance to prove their worth, and that kindness and quiet dedication can outshine any degree or title, smash that like button right now, drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Vault so you never miss a story like this one. Marcus had raised 2 children alone since his wife Renata passed away 4 years earlier, a slow illness that had drained their savings and left him with nothing but a toolbox inherited from his father and a stubborn refusal to quit. His daughter Priya was 11, sharp as a blade and quick to notice when her father came home with his shoulders slumped lower than usual. His son Theo was 8, and every night before bed he asked Marcus the same question, whether tomorrow would be the day his dad got to fix something important. Marcus always smiled and told him someday, though inside he doubted that day would ever come. He had trained as a mechanical engineer decades ago, before his life took a different path, before student debt and a sick wife and 2 small children rearranged every plan he had ever made. Nobody at Holbrook Dynamics knew that the quiet janitor who fixed their sinks had once graduated near the top of his class at a state university, only to watch his degree gather dust while he took whatever work would put food on the table. That Tuesday afternoon, the head of engineering, a sharp-eyed woman named Corinne Aldridge, stood before the executive board and admitted defeat. The Munich specialists had gone home. The remaining engineers had exhausted every diagnostic tool in the building. The official recommendation was to scrap the prototype and eat the $3 million loss, along with the contract, along with the company's future. Marcus overheard this conversation while replacing a ceiling tile outside the boardroom, and something in his chest tightened painfully, because he understood, in a way none of the executives could, exactly what it felt like to watch something valuable slip away simply because nobody believed there was any fight left in it. That evening, after his shift ended and the factory floor emptied out, Marcus lingered. He told himself he was only curious. He walked slowly around the enormous engine, running his fingers along its cooling manifolds, listening to the faint hum of the auxiliary power still feeding its diagnostic sensors. He noticed something the engineer's computer models had missed, a slight discoloration near a secondary fuel valve, so subtle that only someone who had spent years working with his hands, not just his eyes, would ever catch it. He remembered a similar issue from a college internship years ago, a resonance harmonic that built up in cold valve seats and caused a catastrophic stall exactly like the one the engine had suffered. He should have gone home. He had no authorization, no clearance, and every reason to believe that touching a $3 million piece of equipment without permission would end his job on the spot. But he thought of Theo's question, whether tomorrow would be the day, and he thought of Priya's quiet faith in him, and he pulled his father's old wrench set from his bag and got to work. He worked through the night, guided only by memory and instinct and the stubborn hope of a man who had nothing left to lose. He recalibrated the valve seating by hand, using tools that had no business anywhere near equipment this sophisticated, feeling his way through calculations he hadn't touched since university. By 4 in the morning, exhausted and covered in engine grease, he stepped back and pressed the diagnostic sequence he had watched the engineers run a dozen times before. The engine roared to life with a clean, steady thrum that echoed through the empty factory like a heartbeat returning to a body everyone had already given up on. Corinne Aldridge arrived at 6 that morning to begin drafting the termination paperwork for the prototype program, and instead found the impossible: a fully operational engine, humming exactly within spec, with a maintenance contractor asleep in a folding chair beside it, his father's wrench still resting in his open palm. She woke him gently, disbelief written across her face, and Marcus, still groggy, braced himself for the anger he was certain he deserved. Instead, Corinne knelt beside the engine, checked the readings 3 times with trembling hands, and then looked at Marcus with an expression he would never forget, the look of someone realizing that the answer they had searched for in 12 credentialed engineers had been quietly mopping their floors the entire time. Within a week, the story had spread through every department at Holbrook Dynamics. The board reinstated the contract. Marcus was offered a full engineering position, one that came with a salary that meant Priya could finally get the tutoring she deserved and Theo could stop hearing his father apologize for what they couldn't afford. If this story moved something in you, if you believe that talent doesn't always wear a title and that a father's love can move mountains nobody else could budge, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances today. Before we close this chapter, we have a special request. Comment the word "second chance" below if you believe ordinary people are capable of extraordinary things when nobody else believes in them. Marcus stood in the factory that evening, the same floor where he had once quietly mopped up after other men's confidence, and watched the great engine run steady and sure under the golden light of a setting sun. He thought of Renata, and how proud she would have been, and he thought of his children, waiting at home for a father who could finally answer Theo's question with the truth. Tomorrow, he would tell his son, was already here.